if that's what they saw. But I would agree with you. I think there's only so much that monetary policy, QE, yield curve control can do, and I think the handover to the fiscal side is the important thing. On negative rates, I think it's unlikely that this will happen in the US. When you look at the costs and the benefits, it's hard to see a great case for negative policy rates. But I think it's helpful for central banks to at least give the impression that they might do that, because again, that is anchoring. If you think there's only a 1 in 10 chance or something, that's anchoring in terms of fixed income markets. So in the event of a very bad macro outcome, it's possible that we could see negative policy rates in the US or the UK, but in the baseline, I think it's very unlikely.
Andrew, given how low yields are, and given the fact that U.S. pensions are still looking for 7 to 8% annualized returns, what's the appropriate annual return target that you see, given where we are?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I think that often return targets are too high. We have certainly taken ours down, and what we use in our internal models and our internal guidance. But I think 4 or 5% type levels are more realistic. Looking at over the next years, at least a lot of plans have come down from the double-digit type returns that they once upon a time had, but 7 to 8% still looks pretty high in terms of starting valuations, and the way we are managing our portfolios at a time when you have some good opportunities, but certainly not cheapness across the board. It's better not to try and push too hard to achieve unrealistic return targets. It's better to be realistic that with a reasonable balance of risk, it needs to be lower in terms of the expectations.
Andrew, I've got 60 seconds on the clock. Forgive me for keeping this one tight, but people think we're vulnerable for another shock here, and I'm trying to work out what the defensive asset of choice should actually be in that environment, with rates already zero and Treasury yields already very low. Where do you go?
So I think the U.S. interest rates, I run global portfolios, and from a global point of view in particular, I still think that U.S. rates remain the U.S. interest rate markets remain the most attractive. If you do have a shock, even without a shift on the part of the Fed to negative rates, there's further for U.S. rates to fall. Whereas when you look at other markets, you're going to need more of a shift in the central bank regime to allow that to happen. So I think duration is one important point. You can look at using currencies as another way to look to have some defense against adverse shocks. But I think at our investment committee, while we look at all different ways to do this, you have to be realistic, and with less of a hedge from interest rates, you need to think carefully about the level of risks you have in your overall portfolio. You need to reduce risk if you don't have the same efficacy of the duration position in your asset allocation.
Andrew, we've got to let you go. Always great to catch up with you, sir. Andrew Balls there of PIMCO. My best to you and the team, the CIO of Global Fixed Income. In this market right now, equity futures off the low, still down around about 1/3 of 1%, off by 8 points on the S&P 500. Coming up on Bloomberg Surveillance, live on Bloomberg TV and on Bloomberg Radio, just a little tease of an exclusive interview with LA Lakers star LeBron James with Business Week. That is coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
Now let's see what else is going on around the world. Here were the latest headlines. It's Amy Morris. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Tom. Coronavirus cases are surging in parts of the U.S. California, Florida, Texas, each setting records for new cases yesterday. Arizona hit a peak in hospitalizations. Disneyland has indefinitely delayed the reopening of its theme parks in California. North Carolina put its reopening on hold for 3 weeks. A joint travel advisory is now in effect for New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
we are jointly instituting that travel advisory today, because what happens in New York happens in New Jersey, happens in Connecticut.
Anyone traveling to those 3 states from areas with high infection rates will have to quarantine for 14 days. A new model predicts the virus death toll in the U.S. will hit 180,000 by October. Congress is in a standoff over police reform in the U.S. The president accuses Democrats of trying to weaken the police. Democrats say the Senate's Republican bill didn't go far enough. Republican Senator Tim Scott and Democratic Senator Doug Jones accusing the other side of playing politics.
They cannot allow this party to be seen as a party that reaches out to all communities.
This was just a way for Senator McConnell to blame Democrats for blocking things.
The House is voting on the Democrats' proposal today. The Democratic National Committee is asking delegates not to travel to the convention. Democrats will hold an almost entirely virtual presidential nominating convention in Milwaukee in August. While Joe Biden does intend to accept the presidential nomination in person, it remains to be seen whether anybody will be there in person to watch. Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Global News 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.
Jenny Liss, Jewish communal leader and philanthropist, talks about why she chose the Jewish Communal Fund for her family's charitable giving.
For a lot of people, it would be the convenience factor. I don't have to track anything.
If charitable giving is an important part of your life, JCF can help you organize your philanthropy with our donor-advised fund. A fund can be established with a minimum tax-deductible contribution of $5,000. Make grants to your favorite charities, and JCF handles all the administration and reporting.
At the year end, our board awards community grants from fees and endowment income to UJ's annual campaign. We also make gifts to specific organizations, the elderly, Holocaust survivors, the hungry. The fact that we come together as a community at the end of the year to build community, that's what makes us different.
Get better at giving back. To find out more about JCF's impact, visit jcfny.org.